Iowa's News Now Sports brings you black and gold glory. Your all-access pass to all things Hawkeyes. This is Eye on the Hawks.
Happy to get the win, and I think it's going to be a good experience for our team because there are a lot of things to highlight that we still have to get better at. And that's the process. That's the race that we run.
Iowa is 3-0, all three wins by double digits, ranked 5th in the country, and yet Kirk Ferentz seemed far from satisfied after the win Saturday night. I'm Grant Becker, joined as always by Rob Howe, and this is Eye on the Hawks. While it may not have been the most exciting game, we've got a whole lot to talk about from Iowa's win over Kent State, starting with the drive. With just under 9 minutes remaining in the second quarter, Iowa started the drive from its own 5-yard line. Only a safety separated the Hawkeyes from the Golden Flashes at that point, but they unleashed a menacing 20-play, 95-yard drive that ended with a sharp touchdown to Sam Laporta and functionally brought the half to a close. No play went longer than 11 yards, but for Kirk Ferentz, that was the beauty of it. And for this offense, it could be the blueprint for success.
Driving the ball is important, and yeah, especially when you're backed up. And we've had a few of those over the years. It really helps build confidence, and it's kind of illustrative in a lot of ways of what it takes to be a good offense is just, concentrating play after play, not worrying about trying to make the big play.
Most of the time when you're backed up like that, we think about let's get 2 first downs so that we can flip the field. And if you can drive it all the way down, that's big, especially ending with a touchdown, right before the end of the half. That was awesome.
That was a really long sequence, but I just think it gave us the confidence to understand that in any situation that we were in, we can handle it. No matter if we're on our 1-yard line or we're on our plus, 45, it shouldn't matter.
There were very few plays on this drive that were remarkable, but the drive as a whole sure was. Kirk Ferentz added that a drive like that can help build a team. Rob, is this the picture of the ideal Iowa offense in 2021?
Well, I think, when you look at it and you say, okay, let's just put together a bunch of 95-yard drives, it's not going to happen, but I think it builds confidence, and I think it reminded me a little bit back in 2002 at Miami of Ohio. It was a tight game. End of that game, Iowa drove. I don't remember the distance of it, but it was one of those drives where a team imposes its will, physically up front, just drives the ball down the field. I think really, Grant, what that did is for, coming into this season, a pretty young, inexperienced offensive line. I think that's the group that gets the most confidence in a situation like that.
Sure, and I think Kirk was targeting his skill players a little bit and saying, hey, we don't have to go 55 yards for every touchdown. You can take 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 yards, keep the drive alive, keep the ball moving, put points on the board at the end of it. Tyler Goodson chipped in 25 of the 95 yards on that drive, and that was the only Iowa touchdown he didn't score. Goodson's season started about as well as you could hope. His first run of the year went 4 yards for a first down, and his next one went 56 yards for a touchdown. But for the rest of weeks 1 and 2, Goodson averaged just over 3 yards per carry, leaving plenty to be desired. Any worry about the run game disappeared on Saturday, though, as Goodson and the offensive line gashed Kent State for his career bests 153 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Kent State had a good defense as well, and we knew they had a good defense. They had some good athletes, but the guys up front did a good job of getting to their assignments and making sure the running backs had just a little split second just to get open to the open field, and they did that. And from there, it was just all about the running backs, just being able to make some guys miss and take us to the house.
They made it tough, and so to Tyler's point, Tyler's credit, he did a good job running. Good to get him on track, and hopefully we can keep building off that.
Even if you take out Goodson's 46-yard touchdown where he didn't have to do much outside of catching the pitch, he still averaged more than 5 yards per carry. Rob, I know run defense is not Kent State's strength, but this had to be an encouraging performance.
Yeah, without question. I thought the offensive line did a better job of opening up holes, and I thought the running backs showed more patience and waiting in those zone blocking schemes for the holes to open a little bit more. The play call on the long touchdown run, where I think it was 3rd and short, they pitch, as you said, they pitched the ball to Goodson, and he goes pretty much untouched. I thought that was a great play call. You show a tendency, okay, we're going to go jumbo here, and then boom, nice play call. He runs in, and that, I think, kind of got the offense going a little bit.
Kent State's first drive was a 3-and-out, and their second drive was quite a bit worse. From 3rd and 3 on their own 15, the snap went over QB Dustin Crum's head and into the end zone. When he picked the ball up and turned to escape, he was greeted by 7 Hawkeyes who swallowed him up for a monstrous safety. Iowa parlayed those 2 points into 7 more. But the safety was representative of something bigger. Another message that if you stumble against this Hawkeye defense, they will make you pay.
That's another thing Coach Parker stresses is like when someone looks up that he should see all 11 hats running right at him. And I feel like that's just discouraging when you look up and you got 6 Hawkeyes running at you and you're on the goal line and you get blasted in the end zone for safety. That's just a great team feeling. And we're gonna look at it tomorrow, obviously, but just to see, I'm just interested to see how many guys run on that, and just one heck of a play by the defense. So.
If you find somebody who talks about you the way that Jack Campbell talked about that safety, keep them around. Rob, I feel like this play was a metaphor for the 2021 Iowa defense. If you give them an inch, they will take a mile.
Yeah, it was like the chum that sharks with chum in the water. They just went after the ball, and there was really no chance. Once that ball went over Crum's head, it was over because they were swarming to the football, and they've done that all season. This group on defense seems to always know where the ball is, and whenever it's in a position where they can leverage, they swarm to the ball. And it's got to be daunting and disconcerting for offenses to know that if you slip up just a little bit, this defense is going to make you pay.
Yeah, if you're Crum, you're going to be seeing that in your nightmares for the next couple of weeks. And whatever quarterback comes next for Iowa, when they go back and they look at the film of that, they're like, I mean, maybe I just fall on the ball so I don't have to worry about that kind of thing. But that puts something in their heads. That's something that they have to worry about.
After watching the tape, I think we saw a lot of really good things, especially up front on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Got a lot of young players playing on both sides of the ball, or inexperienced players. And, really pleased with some of the things we saw.
Kirk Ferentz is trying to take stock of his football team after 3 weeks, and that's what we're going to do as well when Eye on the Hawks comes back.
When you get everybody playing together, that really gives you a chance. So it's just how fast can we improve, and that's always kind of been the story of our teams.
It seems this Hawkeye team is coming together nicely, and the story so far is that they are on track to meet their goals. There's a whole lot of ball left to play, but it's worth taking a look at the big picture in the Big Ten as we get into the heart of fall. And at 3-0 overall, Iowa is one of 2 Big Ten West teams without a conference loss yet. Purdue hasn't played a Big Ten game. Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Nebraska, and Northwestern, who's so far down that I didn't have room for them in this graphic, all have lost crossover games. Iowa is the only Big Ten West team that has a win over a team from the East so far. Rob, I know we've barely got things started here, but what are your early surprises from the Big Ten West action through 3 weeks?
I think it's probably Northwestern. They had the bounce back last year, and I'm figuring, okay, they did lose a lot, but you think, at some point, you start to build on years, but it just seems like Northwestern, they have a good year, have a bad year, have a good year, have a bad year, and that's they're back on the bad year again, and they lost to a not very good Duke team, and I'm sure Pat Fitzgerald is a little alarmed at what's going on so far with this team.
I think this is the hardest way to do it, to go from being great to being bad, to being great to being bad. At some point, usually, you got to have a consistent level here.
The quarterback situation, too. It just seems so unsettled year to year there.
I know we're just 3 weeks in here, Rob, but do you think that Iowa has separated itself, made itself the clear favorite, or have they not done enough yet to separate themselves from Wisconsin?
I think through 3 weeks, I think Iowa is clearly the favorite to win this division yet. But as you said, there's so far to go. And we'll get a better idea about Wisconsin this week when it plays Notre Dame in Chicago. But you look at the teams in the West, these are historically teams that kind of evolve as the season goes on. So I think if you're trying to make too many judgments this early in the season, it's a fool's errand. You kind of have to see how things play out. That's
certainly how Kirk Ferentz has been talking about this season here too. So I think that's probably a sage wisdom right there. But I thought Wisconsin was going to look like Iowa, and they kind of look like Iowa. We know the defense is spectacular. How far along is the offense? Is the offense going to get better? How good can the offense get? We'll find out when those 2 teams meet up. Over in the East, we've got 4 teams at 1-0 in Big Ten play, all against teams from the West. Penn State, Michigan State, and Maryland are all 3-0 overall, with Ohio State at 2-1. Michigan and Rutgers will meet this weekend in their first Big Ten game. Both teams move through non-conference play without a loss, and at the bottom is Indiana, and that is all thanks to the Hawkeyes. Rob, with Michigan and Michigan State looking formidable, do you think it's a 4-horse race in the East, or is it still that 2 tiers, Ohio State and Penn State at the top, Michigan State and Michigan hoping to maybe cause some problems for them?
No, I think you have to put Michigan State in there, excuse me. It's got a road win against Miami. Maryland beat West Virginia. I mean, Rutgers is 3-0. The Big Ten East is really loaded this season, I think, and Ohio State has shown vulnerability too, so that kind of opens things up. But I still think when you look at it, Ohio State's the favorite until somebody knocks them off. Penn State gets a win at home against Auburn, though, so obviously that's a team that's going to have to contend with, that Ohio State's going to have to contend with. But again, really early. We'll have to see how these teams evolve as the season goes on.
This is the most interesting to me that the Big Ten East has been probably this entire time. We've taken stock of the Big Ten, now let's take Iowa stock, starting with the offense. Certainly the defense has outpaced the Hawkeye offense so far, but by no means is that a knock on the attack. They have done what's been asked of them. And not only has Spencer Petras not thrown an interception this season, he's thrown 154 consecutive passes without a pick. That's the longest such streak of the Ferentz era. And as a whole, Kirk Ferentz likes the direction of this offense.
I think we took strides. I think we were a little more detailed, and I thought today was probably our best offensive practice this year, which is maybe it coincides with fall. It felt like fall, and I think this is the first day of fall, so it takes time. It's frustrating at times, and you want things to go faster and all that, and we're not there yet, but at least I think we're moving in the right direction, and saw some things out there Saturday. Again, that drive obviously sticks out.
The Hawks produced a season-best 418 yards of offense on Saturday in a game where it felt like we needed to see something from this unit. Rob, are you buying, selling, or holding stock in the Hawkeye offense right now?
It was interesting the way that it started that game the other day. There were boos from Kinnick Stadium early in that game, and then Iowa, as we said, kind of established things as the game went on. I think the stock is pretty low right now if you ask some of the fan base, but I think Iowa, I agree with Kirk, I think Iowa's offense is making strides. It all starts up front, and Iowa started the season with an inexperienced offensive line. They now have 3 games under their belt, and I think as they get better, this offense is going to be able to do more things and open up the playbook a little bit more.
I agree with you here. This is an opportunity to buy low on an offense that has a lot of upside here, especially with that offensive line. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball, after 3 weeks of action, Iowa's defense ranks 2nd in the nation in ESPN's SP+, a tempo and opponent-adjusted metric for efficiency. The only team in the country that ranks ahead of them is Georgia, and while we've seen basically nothing but positives from the Hawkeye defense, they believe they can get a whole lot better.
I think we could have played cleaner football last week, and we want to improve on that this week against Colorado State. That's where our focus is, less penalties and just play solid fundamental football.
I feel like our defense gets better by just not being complacent, just knowing that every day we have to come in and work. And like our head coach said, we always have work to do. And, I mean, this week we got to put our heads back down, improve, so we can correct on that mistakes and become better this week.
If and when the Hawkeyes lose a game this fall, it certainly won't be because they were looking ahead. Rob, stock in this Iowa defense is pretty pricey, but are you buying, selling, or holding what you've got right now?
Buy. I don't know. You don't buy this defense, and it's not only this year, Grant. It's the side of the ball where Iowa just continually reloads. You lose 3 starting defensive linemen, boom, week 3, you record 7 sacks against Kent State. It's whatever Iowa needs from its defense, it seems to get every week. Even if it's really high, you still have to buy.
They're a big team, physical team, especially up front. They do a good job there. They've got a big running back.
Once again, Iowa is a big favorite, but Kirk Ferentz has a high opinion of the opponent. We talk about the Colorado State Rams when Eye on the Hawks comes back.
Yeah, they're going to get him the ball. They're going to put it in his hands, and he's a really good blocker. He's a big physical guy, but also a really good runner too. So, and they're going to make sure he gets the ball, which that's good coaching.
That's Kirk Ferentz talking about the heart of Colorado State's offense, tight end Trey McBride. The senior isn't just an all-Mountain West player. He is all-American caliber, and he's Todd McShay's top tight end in this draft class. Through 3 games this season, he's got a whopping 30 catches, including 13 in the season opener. Add in 339 yards and a touchdown, and you're looking at a guy who could cause some problems this weekend.
He's really, really good, and a couple things about him. He does everything well. He blocks well. They pull him a lot, bring him across formation, that type of thing. And then it's interesting. The offensive coordinator now was at Wisconsin, played at Wisconsin, was up there, and they've done a nice job last couple decades of what they do to feature good tight ends. So you see some of that thinking in there too. Some of the screen passes they run and little things they do that are a little bit unique.
It's a coach right there who knows a good tight end. Charlie Kohler was a bit banged up when he met the Iowa defense. He was held in check, though, 4 catches for 34 yards. But we have seen a couple of big plays allowed in each game. Rob, who do you expect to be tasked with Trey McBride this week?
Yeah, he's a big boy, isn't he? And you look at those 30 catches, those are the most in the country, wide receiver, tight end, anybody. They get him the ball, they get him the ball in space, they get him the ball underneath and let him run over people. I think it's a situation where you have the best of both worlds here if you're Iowa's defense. Dane Belton is more physical this year. I think he is a guy that can run with a tight end. And I think the emerging guy on the defense, Grant, Justin Jacobs, this is his job this weekend. I think this is the first big test for him.
If you're one of these draft evaluators, you're looking at this weekend, all right, what can Trey McBride do against this Iowa defense? What are we going to learn about him? They're probably going to learn about those 2 guys that you just mentioned. This could be a stock rising opportunity for a couple of guys who here internally Iowa knows are very good players. Colorado State turned in its best defensive performance of the season last week, holding a Toledo squad that had just scored 29 against Notre Dame to a measly 6 points. They racked up 6 sacks and held the Rockets to 21 rushing yards on 28 attempts. Their front 7 has stood out on tape, according to the Hawkeyes.
I'd say about their front 7 as a whole is pretty, physical and talented. And they play hard. So something to be aware of. You never want to. You always want to respect your opponent. And certainly if a guy's showing up on tape, then it's important to really respect him.
Yeah, they have a great front line, great linebackers. They're a very solid defense. We're just going out there practicing every day like we're playing biggest game because it is our biggest game. It's our next one.
We can't predict what it's gonna look like in October, even November. Yeah, who knows? We still got 4 days till game day, so a lot of things can happen that way too.
Maybe we can't predict what will happen in October or November, but we'll try to predict what happens on Saturday when Eye on the Hawks returns.
It's called bad coaching, right here. Yeah, so I'll take that one. Yeah, it was dumb. Yeah, that was a dumb sequence.
The snort gets me every time. That was Kirk Ferentz talking about the fake punt decision last week. He didn't just call it dumb. He called it dumb 10 times in less than 60 seconds. We certainly know how Kirk feels about that decision. What were you thinking when they pulled out the fake punt?
I was surprised. I think a lot of people were surprised, but Kent State wasn't surprised, and that was the most important. That was the most important factor there. I'm not sure really what the goal was there in that point of the game. Kirk said, "Hey, we now have it on tape, so other teams have to prepare for it." But other teams are probably welcome it the way that they tried to execute that thing.
And that's exactly what he said. He wants that one back. He wants that one back. All right, it's time for some picks. ESPN's Football Power Index gives Colorado State just a 3.8% chance to win this week. The Hawkeyes are a 23-point favorite after covering the 22.5 last week. Rob, I know you've got this as a win. What is your score prediction?
I think I have it like 35-6, something like that, at 31-6, somewhere in that range. I just think, teams, Kent State tried to do this, Iowa State tried to do this. You try to play the field position game with Iowa earlier because you want to stay close in the game. The problem with that is Iowa does that better than you. So if you come out and try to play conservative and keep the game close and try to get into the fourth quarter, chances are you're going to lose that field position game with Torrey Taylor and special teams. I don't know what the formula is right now for a team like Colorado State or Kent State to spring an upset on Iowa.
Yes, you can't beat this Hawkeye team at their game. Right now, what they're doing, they're the best in the country at this specific way of playing football. Yeah, I think it's like 35-10 or something. I do expect Trey McBride to get in the end zone at least once this weekend. That'll do it for Week 4 of Eye on the Hawks. We will be right back here next week with a recap of Saturday's Colorado State game and a preview of Iowa's Friday night return to Big Ten play. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.